Hello, fellow Star Wars fans. It is Staraptor here. It is Sunday night, and we are talking The Mandalorian Season 2, Episode 7, titled What is it called? The Believer. There
The
we go.
believer.
We're off to
Believer,
a
yeah.
great start. And in this episode, we have our crew, Boba Fett, Fennec Shand. We have the characters of Mandalorian, as well as Bill Burr's character, Mayfield, coming back to go and find the light cruiser that Moff Gideon has Grogu on. So they go to this planet, and it is a fun ride through the jungle. Gave me some serious Rogue One vibes, especially when you've seen the shore troopers out there and going undercover, getting in information, and seeing that Din Djarin take his helmet off. It was something that they've been teasing all season long, and it was a solid episode. I'm going to throw it over to Ben first this week. What'd you think? Initial impressions of The Believer?
I thought it was a really fun episode. I actually was surprised because at first going into it, I was a little worried. I was like, is this going to be a spider episode like the second one? Is it going to be like kind of a really dead stop of the story or a really slow down of the action? And it definitely wasn't. It shocked me. There was a lot of really good moments in it, like you mentioned, Chris, seeing Din take his helmet off. Pedro Pascal's acting, it shows right there. He needs to have his helmet off more because like the gravitas he was really showing, you could really feel as an audience member seeing how nervous, almost like sick feeling he looked on his face when he was having that meeting with whoever that Imperial officer was. Fun fact, he was actually the first cast of the Night King for Game of Thrones. Um and then I love that part of the episode. But I think my favorite part of the episode, honestly, I mean, obviously the end of it was great when, you had Den give his whole spiel to Gideon. But my favorite part of the episode, I feel like, was Den and Bill Burr's little heart to heart chat in the truck when Bill Burr was basically calling him out on his crap, like, hey
Mhm.
dude, you keep changing your code when it's convenient for you. When are you actually going to really stick to it? Is it, you're not supposed to take your Mando helmet off, or you're not supposed to show your face? What's going on? And like Bill Burr pointed out to him, the way he sees it, like at the end of the day, as long as he's getting by and living life and being safe and going to bed at night, he views that as like a successful day. So I thought that was a really good kind of like a life lesson for Mando that he really needed, even though he was kind of being stubborn about it in that moment. I thought it was a great, great moment. And, big props to Bill Burr. I think he was the best acting throughout the entire episode. And yeah, just it was a lot of fun. And of course, we love all the little Easter eggs, like the stuff with Boba with the sonic charges, that was, or seismic charges, that was great. And it was just a lot of fun really as a whole.
I couldn't hear you, Chris. You still there?
Whoop, I had mute on. What about you,
There you
Milton?
go. No. No, it's all good, man. Listen, we're live for a reason. Um, I thought it was a really good episode. It definitely was a solid episode. I'll agree with Ben on that one. I really liked how we got to see more of the Bill Burr character and more of his backstory. I felt that there was a lot of heart with his story, and it was pretty much a redemption. I kind of felt this episode was trying to portray with his character. Overall, I was very excited to watch it. Was it my favorite? No, it wasn't my favorite. And again, that's not a negative. It's just a really solid episode. There's a lot of good things that I liked about it. There's some things that I really enjoyed. Some things that they probably could have done differently. But overall, it was a very solid episode. I mean, I think what's been consistent about this show and every episode is that every episode has been consistently good, consistently solid. There hasn't been anything that was there isn't that one garbage episode that was
Hmm.
unnecessary.
Yes.
Again, the episodes served its purpose. It pushed the story. It evolved the characters. We got to see Din's face, which I thought was amazing.
Hmm.
I didn't expect it to be that long that he has his helmet off. I figured, oh, just take it off quickly, do the
Yep.
face
Yep.
scan, interact with a character that had never seen him before, and then move forward. But to really see like him in that environment, I was really trying to pay attention to his facials and how, because I wanted to see if he was uncomfortable with it. And I'm thinking as the show progresses, he'll continue to take more chances with the helmet being off. But it was nice to see how we got to see Bill Burr really come in fruition with his character and get a full circle. I'm really interested to see about where we take that character further in the other, I guess, seasons to come, because I think he's a very rich character. I think the fans will get behind of.
For sure. And one thing that dawned on me after I watched this episode for the second time, we didn't have Grogu in this episode at all. This is the first episode of The Mandalorian. There was an absence of Grogu, and I haven't seen anything on Twitter or like the social hubs of Star Wars fans saying anything about that. So that just goes to show you that yes, you don't need Grogu in the show for it to be a damn good show, right? Like you don't need that character that everybody thought maybe that's what was like drawing people in, but it was still just as fun. I'll say right off the bat, I think from a visual perspective, and first off, this episode was directed and written by Rick Famuyiwa, who was also involved with season 1 directing episode 2 as well as episode 6 of last season. So it was great to see him come back. And this scale of this episode, or just the look of it, was just, I think it looked like the best to me out of all the episodes. Just the jungle environments and the way that the action was, the TIE fighters, everything about it was just very cinematic to me. And like I said, really reminded me of Rogue One. And I like the beginning, and we'll kind of talk in sequence throughout this episode. But I do want to talk about the first scene with all these little kind of cutbacks to Bill Burr's character Mayfield, and seeing him on this planet, and he's like sentenced to like 50 years in the chop fields of whatever the place was called. But it reminded me of Braca from Star Wars Jedi Fallen Order, which was the planet where they were breaking down all the Republic stuff for the Empire to use. And this is like, okay, now they're breaking down all the Imperial stuff that they're going to use. I like how they brought back the prisoner droids of the New Republic. So again, it shows you about the New Republic. Like, they don't have enough people at this point to like service the entire known region of the galaxy. So they actually have to employ droids, which is called back to the prequels, which is really neat. But it was just cool, like seeing the junkyard, seeing like TIE fighter cockpits, seeing those awesome walkers again that we've seen from that planet Trask that were just like transporting things. So they're repurposing what looks like ATs to do that, and then they have like ATST heads like lying around. So I just thought it was a cool intro sequence for sure. And then Cara Dune walks up as the marshal and flaunts her authority, like, yeah, I need this prisoner. We're going to go now. Like, she has that kind of authority already to just grab a prisoner. I think that was pretty cool.
I agree. Actually, the one thing that it reminded me of, the I guess the prisoner planet or whatnot. There's a planet in the game, The Force Unleashed, where I think Galen Merrick goes to like stop the one Jedi who becomes crazy. I forget
Raxus Prime
name, but yes, Raxus Prime. That's what.
Yep.
Thank you. That's what it reminded me of. Well, clearly the environments were very much different, but a lot of similarities because of the way the color palette looked and that type of thing. That's the feel that I got. And again, I like the prequel feel of the droids, because I think again the old Republic, or I guess the Galactic Republic at the time, was very much droid heavy. And I think with the New Republic established themselves now again, they're bringing back some of those elements. So it was nice to see that. It was cool to see how the Marshal was able to just show up like that and just be like, hey, I need this prisoner, no questions asked. It was cool to see how she was flaunting that authority. And we got to see that there's something behind that character that she doesn't trust about this Mayfield character. I think they had some type of interaction, or maybe because he was Imperial, maybe she's thrown off by it. But I mean, again, it was nice to see that introduction. It was a good way to start the episode. What I really took away from the beginning of the episode, honestly, was the music. With the title card, for some reason, the music in this show, especially this season, has really connected with me. Like, I'm a huge John Williams fan. I love his Star Wars themes. But I have been disappointed with the last couple sequel movies scores. But with this one, I was like, oh my goodness, this feels like something John Williams would create. But clearly it's very different because it's a different composer. So that first initial music hit me with that title card. I'm thinking, okay, we're in for something big. And I just really enjoyed that.
Oh yeah. Quick shout out to the chat. We have Christopher Weber, your brother. Love this episode. Not overly flashy, but added a lot of depth to people. Bill Burr is perfect for Mayfield. His lines were basically a stand-up routine. Yeah, I really like how
Yeah.
this guy is inserted into Star Wars. I know him from Breaking Bad, and he was one of the henchmen of Saul Goodman
Mm,
who went around and did his dirty deeds. And I thought he really comes into Star
right.
Wars. He's got
He's
that
also
accent,
from
which is
Dave Chappelle
hilarious.
show.
Oh, is he? Okay.
Yeah, he's a so go back and watch like the first two Dave Chappelle seasons. Bill Burr's throughout the whole series. Like he's a
Oh.
huge comedian back in the early 2000s. Really, really funny. So me seeing him in this environment, I know he's a comedian, but I can see how they use some of his comedic chops to give more of that dramatic, role, which it works out perfect. Because we need some of that levity in this particular series.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. And Chris Forsyth, who, if you guys watched our makeshift live stream between me, Ben, and Chris, he was on our live stream talking about all the discussions of all the awesome Star Wars news. You guys can check out that video. It was like over 2 hours of us just going on and on about how amazed we are of all the announcements. He's saying he's seen TIE Strikers in there. That is awesome because I already talked about the Rogue One connections, and that's one I didn't even look for. So Rick Famuyiwa must really be a fan of Rogue One. He's like, let's just basically make Rogue One over again into like a 35-minute episode in a sense.
Right.
But I do want to talk about the Bill Burr moment when Slave One comes down. He sees Boba Fett. He's like, oh, thank God, like you're not him. And then he just see Din Djarin just walking. He's like, oh, I'm in trouble. But it was pretty cool seeing Boba's armor cleaned up like that. I was not expecting, like, whoa, like, what the heck? Like, why didn't he clean up his armor before? Do you guys have any theories on, like, why now? Like, in Empire Strikes Back and Return of the Jedi, he always had the dirtied up armor. Like, that was his image. Like, what has he gone through since he hadn't had that armor? He had to go through some kind of spiritual thing in order to, like, pristine armor. I don't know.
Yeah, I would say so. I would say that's the main reason why his character, along with all the characters in this show, they're showing an evolution from their character from the time we met them to now.
Mhm.
So I think that was kind of just symbolic of like Boba Fett maybe evolving from being like a villain type of character to more of a true Mandalorian because we've seen other Mandalorians like Sabine design their armor, update their armor, clean it up. So I think I mean, heck, even Din, we've seen him update his armor massively in this show. So I think Boba doing that just, fits the part. It's symbolic. And, what was one of the big things about Boba Fett under George Lucas? He could sell toys. So I think this Boba Fett update also gives them a reason to be like, hey, here's a bunch of new Boba Fett toys. Here's a bunch of new Boba Fett this, Boba Fett that, like, really amp up the Boba Fett toy.
Dude, there's gonna be like 3 different versions of Boba Fett. There's gonna be the one where he's got no helmet, the one where he's got the messed up armor, and now the one with the cleaned up armor. There you go. Hasbro has like a whole year's worth of Boba Fett's to put out.
Yeah,
Oh, and then they'll have those
exactly.
big, like the big statues, like they'll do like the character statues of the different types of Bobas. I mean, it
Oh,
makes
yeah.
sense. I mean, again, I think with this different version of him, Disney and Lucas, okay, marketing opportunity because all the sweaties out there are gonna want the Tim Morrison version with his helmet off. That's gonna be a collector's item, I think, for years to come.
So we're gonna address something that we have to do every week here. Ben, did you stay up till 3 a.m. to watch the episode because Chris is asking in the chat?
Yes, of course I did. So I got off the call with you and Chris about midnight, and then I was like, okay, what am I gonna do? I made my dinner because I hadn't had dinner. I had dinner about 12:30 that night, and then
Oh, yeah.
I sat and played some Battlefront 2 actually for about an hour or two, and then about 2:45 I got around and pulled up Disney Plus and just got a drink and was ready to go at 3 a.m. for the 3 a.m. watch party.
Yeah. And we got Dr.
That's
Holler.
ridiculous.
Yeah, I applaud your steadfastness to be able to pull through that an all-nighter there. We have Dr. Holocron in the chat. Hey, how's it going, man? He's loving also how Boba Fett cleaned up his armor. And he also mentioned he's like reading my mind tonight because as I'm going through my points that I've notes on, he's like literally saying them as I say them. And I was about to mention about how cool Slave One looked from the inside. That's exactly what he pointed out. I thought that was such a cool little tidbit where like they're in the interior. I always like wondered how it orients itself from horizontal to vertical, and that was just like such a cool thing that Favreau probably was like, "We're doing what the toy does," you know. I could see him be like,
Well,
"We got to
Chris,
put that in there."
it's it's bigger than what I thought on the inside because
Yeah,
honestly, just watching, Empire Strikes Back and Attack of the Clones, it looks like basically you just have maybe a smaller cargo hold for the Han Solo and Carbonite, and then you have the cockpit, and that's pretty much it. But it's actually way more roomier than what I thought.
yeah, it's got like an observation deck on top of like the actual pilot chamber or whatever you want to call it. So I thought that was super cool
Yep.
how they're like all hanging out on the top and it's got the view screen and all that. I do want to move and talk about the main action, or at least I think it's the main action set piece of this episode, and I thought it was freaking cool. First off, seeing Mando in like tank trooper armor was definitely interesting because it shows you how capable of a Mandalorian warrior is. He doesn't need his best car to fight so freaking good. He's outnumbered like 20-1, and he's still taking these fools out. He loses his blaster and he's fighting these guys hand to hand. And as soon as I seen him pick up that pole or whatever he's using, I was like, okay, this is showing us how good he is with the melee weapon. And what do we know he has? He has that Beskar made staff, so it's given us a little bit of foreshadowing, like, oh man, if he's doing this with this thing, imagine what he could do with a Beskar weapon. And it just gives us that kind of example of what we can do. And I just thought it was fantastic. Like looking at, first off, we get the Juggernaut vehicle from Clone Wars and Revenge of the Sith. They modified it obviously, and I like that
Right.
whole like speed, the movie speed, where it's like you can't go too fast, you can't go too slow. They got the Rhydonium, which is also in the Clone Wars. That was in the episode not a sunny day in the void with the clone commander Gregor, and he died supposedly in an explosion of Rhydonium. But enough with that. But like it was a cool action sequence where it's like it was like a nail biter because they were opening up the thing to expose it to put the thermal detonators in there, and it just kept coming on the skiffs. And then you see the Imperials just come in at the last second, and that was probably the first time in my life that I actually ever cheered when Imperials came on the screen because it's like the saviors are the Imperials. But
Right.
yeah, I want to spend a few minutes just talking about how awesome. At least I thought it was awesome this scene was. So, Milton, what'd you think about this one?
Oh, it was a dope ass scene. Like it was something that was needed. I thought it was cool though how they set it up, because the initial argument was, well, who's going to go with Mayfield?
Yeah,
Who is going
yeah,
to
yeah.
make sure he doesn't do nothing, grimy and whatnot? And we kind of all kind of saw that coming of like, okay, Mando's going to have to be the one to do it because they won't recognize him. And we are like, well, how's he going to pull this off? But then for him to have the idea to take the Imperial armor and wear that, and how Mayfield kept like coming at him about his code and whatnot. It was cool to see how uncomfortable he was with that whole situation.
Oh yeah.
Because I think a lot of people who don't really know Star Wars and know these characters, they probably think these characters are so confident and nothing bothers them. But you can clearly feel it that Den was not comfortable with wearing the
Oh hell
Imperial
no.
armor. He just didn't feel like he was in a good place with it. But it was all about the mission, about the kid. Seeing the whole action go down with those that village. What were those people? I didn't quite catch that. Were those villagers that were attacking their ship, or their transport? That was cool seeing that. I really enjoy that element of you have to still be careful with this particular fuel or substance because it will explode. I thought the action scene was very well done. Clearly, the directors that they've chosen know how to shoot action. We get to see it. It isn't cut every 2 seconds. There really isn't what the whole handheld shots that we don't get. I mean, which is not needed in this particular instance. I thought it was well done. It served its purpose. It's again showing the other side of the Imperials. Like these guys aren't just fighting rebels all day. Like they're actually doing a job. These
Mm-hmm.
guys are getting paid, and some of these guys don't want to be there. I got the sense that nobody really wanted to hang out at this particular base or wanted to work at this particular base. It kind of felt like a shit job, but that's what they had to do. That's where they were stationed. So it was cool seeing that different side of the Empire. Again, I thought it was well shot. It looked really good. And again, you were right. I actually was rooting for the Imperials. I couldn't believe it. Like I'm rooting for the bad guys to help these guys, but it needed to serve its purpose. Again, everything serves a purpose
Mm-hmm.
within these episodes.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. A quick point on like didn't feel uncomfortable in the armor. I do want to make a point to address that because think about it. Like the Imperials are the symbols of genocide for his people.
Hmm.
Like that is like you know, wearing like a Nazi uniform as somebody that lived in Germany. Like it's like just the absolute worst thing a person like that could be that's been persecuted like that. Like that's just it just like the lowest of the low. But and we'll talk about this as we talk about the point when he removes his helmet later on. He's just doing whatever he can at this point. Like the kid is not a mission anymore for him. It's like it's a necessity because he has a true bond built up with Grogu. It's not just, oh, I'm doing this because I was told to deliver him. He's built up this relationship over these several episodes and forever, however long this time period has been since he first met him, a year, a couple months. We're not sure on that yet, but it just shows you how much drive he has. And Ben, do you have anything to add to this segment of the episode here?
Oh yeah, I can echo both your guys' sentiments for this whole action sequence. I loved, as you mentioned, Milton, the beginning of it when just the little bits of humor, not forced, but I loved when, you know, of course it's like inside, not an inside baseball reference, but a lot, you know, all the hardcore Star Wars fans get a chuckle out of Boba Fett saying they might recognize my face. I thought that was pretty funny. But the
I
whole
love that
action,
part.
yeah, the whole action sequence though, it was really good for the most part. This ironically though, this is one part of the episode that I was kind of critiquey about just because you know, the pirates that come to steal the Rhydonium, you know, they come armed with a bunch of thermal detonators, but they have staffs when Mando has just stormtrooper armor on and not Beskar. So I was just kind of like, you know, as soon as we take away Mando's figurative plot armor being his Beskar, you know, we're going to disarm the adversaries. So I thought that was kind of a little questionable, but I mean it makes sense, and I love just seeing how vulnerable Din is. You know, he knows subconsciously, he knows like, hey, you know, I just watched Boba Fett bash these guys' armor's heads in with, you know, the guy wearing this armor, you know, in with a stick in the last episode. Like,
Yeah.
so, you know, he's probably thinking, well, you know, this could actually turn out pretty bad for me. So it was really cool seeing him jump into action, even with all that in mind. And like you said, the reference to like the Speed movie, like all that was really nice. But yeah, overall, it was a pretty good scene for the most part, I would say. And again, like you both said, it's crazy that you were cheering for the Empire, and you know it really shows. This show shows again the whole boots on the ground feel. Like it's all about your perspective. Like, you know, where you were living, you know, you may actually be supporting the Empire a little bit based on
Hmm.
what they were doing for you, you know, your town you were living in versus, you know, the potential threats that could happen being those pirates.
Yeah, yeah,
And
yeah.
I think Mayfield actually referenced that because he talks about you know, to these people, you know, the Empire and the Rebellion are all the same thing. Like they
Yep.
don't matter. You know, they're
He
always
said
there to
they're all
occupy.
invaders.
They're all invaders. They all try to
Yep.
occupy something, and then it's all for their benefit or whatever. Which he makes a good point. And then this actually, I can't believe I'm doing this. This actually me references a point back to the Last Jedi when DJ talks to Finn about, hey, he's like, let me learn you something,
Uh-huh.
Finn. He's like, you know, I just sell to the highest bidder pretty much. Both these, like the bad guys, the good guys, are all the same to me. Rebellion, whatever, they all want to buy. And he shows like the weapons from both perspectives. He's like, hey, I just do what I need to do. So again, from the outside to us, we see bad guy, good guy. But if we're in this world, we're like, oh wait, the Empire, are they really that bad?
Yeah.
The Rebellion, what's their purpose again? What are they trying to do? They're doing pretty much the same thing, except for they wear a different uniform. You know, like I could see how people in that Star Wars universe would say, are there really a difference?
Oh
Mm,
yeah, for
mm.
sure. Look, the prequels, you have the Jedi basically take out the president of the galaxy in Palpatine, or try to take out the president of the galaxy. And then in the original trilogy, you do have them take him out. So some people were probably like, "Whoa, these people just overthrew the government. Like,
Right.
should we really support them?" You know, so it's really cool seeing that whole like everyday person feel versus just the main heroes.
Oh
That's a
yeah,
really
for
good point.
sure.
Very
For
good
sure,
point.
for sure. Yeah, so your brother Christopher is saying, seeing Dune knock someone out with a helmet on with our fist, then didn't get his armor disintegrated by a pirate with a stick makes me question the Empire's military budgeting.
Facts.
Like I said,
Facts.
it shows you the Beskar, right? How the Beskar compares to just, it's like, why even wear the armor at that point? It doesn't even feel like it's doing a whole lot for you. And
Well, I mean, even going back to that point though, I mean, why do you think the Empire got rid of the clones? I mean, they were too expensive. Like they talk
yeah,
about that. I think in some canon, pretty much of like the clones, they were too to get them efficient the way they were. It just cost too much. I mean, and let's be real here. People don't really want to say this, but it does. There is money in Star Wars, and there's no way that they could build 2 Death Stars without spending money on something. So you had to cut their costs somewhere. And like I
huh.
said, they just needed bodies for the Empire. Like there's no way they can afford keeping the clones going the way that and feeding them, training, housing them. Like it took a lot. So going back to budgeting, I can see how things were cheaper when it comes to the Empire, but
Oh yeah,
there was more quantity, I guess, if you could say, when it comes to that
yeah.
compared to the quality.
Yeah, and guess what? We're gonna get that story, I think, in Bad Batch. I think we got the
Yeah.
trailer, and they show the Phase 2 clones, and they show Task Force 99 or Clone Force 99
Right, right.
fighting the clones. So we're probably gonna get that whole story of why exactly did they phase out the clones. And that's been a story I've wanted for years. But I digress. We're gonna go over to Chris. He's saying something that I also kind of know the answer to. He's saying, to me, this seemed like the post you would want to be at for the Empire. Almost a vacation. Planet seems nice and all you got to do is keep the pirates away. So this is kind of mentioned, I think, in the Rogue One novelization. According to the Scarif Troopers or the Shore Troopers, like if you become a Shore Trooper with the tan armor, that's like you've done a good job for the Empire. You've done your duty as a stormtrooper. You've gotten accolades, and they put you
Mhm.
at like a cushy little post. Like Scarif was like a place. Oh yeah, nobody would ever attack them. So if you go to there,
Right.
you're gonna make it out pretty well for yourself. So I think it's the same sort of situation here. Mayfield's line has come from Dr. Holocron. Mayfield's line is, I can't see anything. This could be why they have bad aim. Oh yeah, I like how I threw that
True.
in there. But talking about the one of the most intense scenes in his entire series, if you ask me, is the whole thing with the mess hall and extracting the data. And
Yeah.
man, talk about Rick Famuyiwa really injecting a sense of nail-biting tension into this episode. It was intense because, like, you see, I can't believe that didn't agree to that. It's like, wait, what? You didn't take off your helmet once, and then you're gonna actually do this. And again, what I spoke about earlier. This is his dedication to Grogu. He is going to these lengths that he would never go to before as a Mandalorian. But look at all he's been through this season, all the characters he's seen from the first episode chapter 9, right? The Marshal. We have him and the character taking off the helmet. Uh, and then he's like, "What? What's going on here?" Same thing with Bo-Katan taking off her helmet. And same thing with Boba Fett. So at this point, I think it's getting to him where it's like, okay, maybe it's not the biggest deal if I take off this thing, at least for
Hmm.
just a little bit. And he did not expect, obviously, to have that thing off for as long as he did, because that guy came over, the officer, and got him. And that's when things really get crazy. When he starts talking about the Empire, I thought that was one of the most interesting things in this episode when he's talking about the Empire from his perspective. This grimy officer, he took part in Operation Cinder, for crying out loud. I love that reference to Battlefront
Yeah.
2 and Alphabet
Yep.
Squadron. Operation Cinder happened as soon as the Empire basically died. He had a message sent to certain people to just incinerate planets, basically based off these weather devices that would simulate like hurricanes and stuff that would just like wipe out everything. He did that to just like hide his military or hide his labs and stuff like that. So he wanted to just get rid of the Empire. It was basically his like way of, oh, if I'm going down, I'm taking it all with me type of thing. And this guy was one of the people that was responsible, and Mayfield ended up working with this guy. So I thought that was really good character development with Mayfield during that scene, because it really shows you where he came from, why he's doing what he's doing, and to the point where he actually starts the gunfight. It was absolutely insane, but it was like one of those cheering moments where I was like, yeah, that guy had it coming, you know. But what'd you think about this scene, Ben? The whole thing with the
I thought
helmet
it,
off and Imperial.
I thought it was really good. I feel like Burr's lines were improvised, where he's like brown eyes, or like going that whole back and forth. I feel like there's a decent chance that could have been improvised by Bill Burr, with his comedic background.
Mhm.
But the scene as a whole, as I mentioned to start this podcast or this episode, it was a really good scene because we really got to see Pedro Pascal really show his like nervousness, or like, he looked like he was about to be sick. I mean, heck, like you said, Chris, leading up into that moment when he was taking his helmet off, like I was nervous when they were walking through there. I was like, oh my gosh, is Bill Burr just gonna squeal right here?
Yeah.
So I was really, really nervous about that. And then, they get in there, Bill Burr walks in, he's like, oh no, nope, never mind, can't go in there. So, then it was like, uh-oh, Mando's gonna have to take his helmet off.
Mhm.
So my and this is my only other critique of the episode, actually, is I think, I don't know, it kind of is a little confusing, because it's like, you have characters that are not basically the Imperial whatever that thing's called, that computer, it's called, basically it recognizes people who are not criminals to the Empire. But the thing about it is, with it being like a military institution, why could like Din walk in off the street and just scan his face and get right into all their like top secret files of where Gideon was? So I thought, I was just like, I don't know about that. But anyways, the scene as a whole, I thought it was really, really good. Just as you mentioned, Chris, seeing Bill Burr's character, like I loved him getting so tense. Like, what about their families? They weren't expendable to their families, blah, 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 blah. Like that whole thing was great. And then, like I said, the guy who played the Night King in Game of Thrones, well, at least in the early seasons, he did such a good job of playing like such a snarky, arrogant Imperial officer. Like I was just, and especially I was hanging on every word of what he was saying, because before he asked them to get a drink, I thought he knew right away Pedro Pascal was not an Imperial trooper, just because, every single line was like, uh-oh, is he about to bust him? And then he's like, come with me. And, he pauses, let's get a drink. So, so that was really good. And I don't know, I thought it was a really, really good scene though, overall.
Right. Yeah, I have to agree with you both. I'm gonna start it this way. The guy that played that snarky officer, he's been in a lot of films that I've seen him in. He's usually like that as his characters. Like he's really good at playing a snarky asshole. Like it's amazing, and you can feel the tension. One thing about the scene that I really enjoyed was the aspect of talking about or introducing the idea of mental health in Star Wars. We really haven't gotten much of that in Star Wars when it comes to post-traumatic stress, when it comes to trauma. Yeah, we see it on bits and pieces. We haven't had anyone really talk about it. And this is where I wished, because think about it, Leia Organa would have been a perfect candidate to talk about something about her trauma and her past. She witnessed her home planet being destroyed in front of Darth Vader. I would have loved to see that scene in the future Star Wars film at the time, of Leia reminiscing about, hey, I'm the only one from Alderaan that we knew of at the time. I watched my father get murdered, my people are murdered, my way of life is done, and the Empire's hunting me down. It'd been cool to see that. But to see it from an Imperial perspective of being a wartime veteran who is clearly traumatized, he cares about his people, he kind of had that survivor's guilt. I got that feeling when he talked about Mayfield, he's like, what about these people's families and, their lives and, people that cared about them, and how you can tell, like, he was not happy to hear that this guy was just dismissing all the sacrifices that were made. Again, we're talking about the Imperials having some type of empathy and sympathy. Yeah. We've never seen that before.
Yeah.
And to get it from this character, I was like, man, I really like this Mayfield guy. Is the Empire really that bad? Are these people that work for the Empire really that bad? They're just people doing a job. Mm-hmm. We look at today's world. We have a lot of people who are pro-military, some who aren't pro-military. People that are military, we read the stories about, military people torturing people, or they come home and they're suffering from PTSD. They can't have a job. They can't get this because they're still dealing with that. That hits home. because I know a lot of friends and family who have suffered because of that stuff, who get a negative stigma because of mental health or because they served in the military, and people don't look good. They look down upon that. So to see that perspective was well written, well told. I mean, it's great to see that Star Wars is taking chances like that that people like us can connect with, because that's a real life thing. Really enjoyed that episode. Loved how it played out. Loved that Bill Burr took it personally. Loved that he still had honor and said, "Hey, I never saw your face at the end. Here's you need this back." It just showed that these characters are rich, and I loved it.
Mm,
Oh
man.
yeah, well, Milton,
Yeah.
just to throw out there with Milton's point about mental health for characters. Another one I think that could have potentially been overlooked is Mando himself, as in, he had the social awkwardness like for his entire life. How old would you guys say Mando is? Maybe 35, 40
Yeah,
years old in
30,
this?
35, yeah.
Somewhere
Yeah,
around there.
so let's just say let's just say 35 years old. So for 35 years he hasn't had his helmet off around any other human being, and now he's forced to not wear it and have a conversation. Like, think about how I mean, I guess we can't even imagine it because we've never even
Yeah.
had to deal with something like that.
That's true.
But imagine how messed up you would feel inside, how awkward you would feel. Like, I'm sitting here having to have this important conversation. Like, I need to try to not crack,
Yeah,
because if I crack, it could blow our cover entirely.
absolutely. No, you're right.
So like, I thought that was a really good thing about Din as well, just because, he's had his helmet on his entire life.
That
Yeah,
is a really good
I agree.
point. I did not even think
That's a good
about
point.
that. Oh yeah.
No, you're absolutely right. And Chris, you don't mind if I jump in real quick, Chris?
Go ahead.
I'm looking at the chat right now. I have it pulled
Yeah.
up on my computer too, and I think I saw something from Dr. Holocron about. He said, "I wouldn't say the episode is defending the actions of the stormtroopers, just that they are just as disposable to the Empire as everyone else is." And I think that's a good point. I think he's right when he says that. That does show that the Empire views them as just, they're replaceable. Like, these people really aren't that important to us unless you, I guess, come from family, or
Mhm.
nepotism comes into place, or if you're some type of elite officer. I think he's right, and I think Mayfield was probably making that point in his own way, saying, "Hey, like, they didn't really care about us. That's why I feel the way I feel when it comes to me surviving and um, not getting the respect that we deserve as veterans of the Empire."
Mm, mm. Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense. Dr. Holocron is really coming in with some great points, because earlier in this episode, probably about 10 minutes ago, Ben was mentioning about, I don't know what the heck the deal is with that terminal. And he has a really good logical explanation. He was saying that I'm pretty sure the scanner was making sure the user's face didn't match anyone in the Republic or criminal databases. The terminal probably didn't even recognize Din since he has no Imperial record. So I think that pretty much explains it in my head canon.
Yeah.
Oh yeah,
No, I
that
think that makes
explains
sense.
it.
I think he's right on that.
Mm, mm.
Yeah. So.
Yeah, so breaking into that last segment of the episode, that's when all hell breaks loose. You got guys getting shot at the dinner table. There's the snipers of Cara Dune and Fennec Shan on the ridge, just taking guys out off the roof. That was great synergy. That was just some solid action. Everybody has a job to do. They're trying to get to the surface of the top of the building, and the spectacle of it all. They're on the side of a freaking dam. Like, it looked freaking epic, man. Just the whole scenery, everything with the gorge, and then Slave One just swooping in to save the day. What'd you guys think of that awesome ending?
Amazing. And I'm gonna talk about the visuals first. If this was on network TV, we would have not have gotten the scope when it comes to the way it looks. It would have been CGI'd in a way where we could have been like, "Oh, that's a green screen, whatever." And I keep forgetting this is made for streaming TV purposes. But God Almighty, man, the way they shoot that cinematography of them walking across that edge of the dam, and then when they're on the ship and you see the perspective of the seismic charge going off, it's like, God Almighty, the way they shoot it, it's amazing and it's beautiful. So the visuals to me was a step up again. The seismic charges, your boy felt like it was 2002 again, because when I
Yeah.
saw that, I
Really?
nearly like had Chris. I noticed this would be a kids channel or more of a PG channel, but God, I had a hard on quick because that seismic charge was fire. Like I want to go back and watch the Clone Wars scene again, just because of it, and it sounded perfect.
Yeah.
Like it wasn't no weird sound to it. It's like, oh, that's a seismic charge,
That was literally
and
the sound pulled from the
it
archives.
looked good. It felt good. And then for Mayfield to take the sniper rifle and
Oh,
said, hey, let me get that real quick. He's like, and what did he say when he shot the building, when he blew it up? He had to just get some stuff off my chest.
Yep.
Like that
oh
was
no.
just a great
Once he's
line.
like,
That was a
we all have
great
to
line.
sleep good at night. No, he like said something about that line he said in the beginning, like, we all have to sleep good or something like that.
Something like that. Yeah.
Yep.
But it's like, oh, that's a great way to punctuate that. It's like, you know what? Let me just end this, be done with this. This is not my life anymore at that point. So it was amazing to see how that particular action set piece went down. Again, to see the Slave One in action, to see Finnick and Kara sniping people, the seismic charges, just the energy behind that scene was amazing. Again, it makes you look forward to the next episode. It makes you look forward to what other action that they can bring to the table in this series.
Yeah, what about you, Ben? Let's hear your thoughts on this awesome end battle, man.
Oh, I can echo every single one of those points Milton said. Soon as Boba took flight, I was like, "Oh boy, I know what we're getting here." So I like literally, soon as the seismic charges went off, I was literally about to just cheer, and it's like 4 o'clock in the morning at my house, so I was having to like be as quiet as possible. I was like, "Woo!" But it was just so epic, like that whole action sequence, and of course seeing Kara and Fennec Shan in action, both of them, that was great. And also to throw out there, like as you said as well, Milton, the Bill Burr character getting the sniper shot, that was really good
awesome.
for his. That was really great for his character. But I think what we're getting here, fellas, the whole ending, I think that also, I think this season alone has been a lot of backdoor pilots to shows. I think this ending was a backdoor pilot to Kara, Fennec, and Boba, Rangers of the New Republic, is what I'm guessing.
Oh yeah.
I didn't think that's a good point. I mean,
Yep.
I know you guys talked about a lot of this the other day, but that'd be a good way to introduce them into that particular show.
Yep.
Yeah.
I think that's what it's going to be. But to continue talking about this episode, I really think that it was just really good. It was a good balance of things. It's good we didn't have Boba Fett go too over the top, because we all know he's pretty much like the baddest man on this show, even more than Din is. So the thing about it is, I'm glad they used him sparingly, because something like this, I always like throw out like the Halo references. Like it's basically like you bring in Boba Fett, it's like you're just dropping in Master Chief. Like it's
Yep.
game over
Yeah.
it's game over for the enemies. So like I really am glad they're not overdoing it with Boba Fett. So that's that, and I mean I think we're gonna get him, in action quite a bit this coming week, but I really liked how little they used him, surprisingly, but they used him just enough. And overall, like I said, it was a really great action sequence, and I loved how it ended up with Bill Burr or Mayfeld getting redemption to Cara Dune at the end of it.
I love how
Yeah.
she put it too. She's like, "Oh, it's a shame that you would have died in the explosion." He's just like awestruck, like, "What? Huh?"
He's like, it's a trick. Like,
He's like, I'll leave. He's like, I'm gonna leave.
Yeah, yeah. I mean, going back, real nitty gritty nerd thing right here. I just gotta call it out. He was named a sharpshooter in episode 6 of season 1, so we actually see Mayfield like doing what he was trained to do, firing with a cycler rifle. By the way, which was Boba's, which was a really nice touch. Like that they brought that back. It's like, yeah, that's what he had from the Tusken Raiders on Tatooine. So use that big physical, because they don't fire a laser, they fire an actual projectile piece of metal or whatever. So that was really cool. And I don't know about you, but I definitely caught some kind of, I don't know, sexual tension or something between Kara and him. I don't know if you guys picked that up, but I think
so.
I think that he could also be in these Rangers of the New Republic. I think they're going to be together. Fennec, Boba Fett's gonna be together. It's gonna be pretty cool.
Right.
Um,
Yeah. No.
yeah,
Like I said, it was cool to see that happen at the end. And what's crazy is, and I think I overlooked it initially, but that he shot that from a moving ship that's going up, that's going vertical. So to sit there and hit that shot
yeah.
showed how good of a shot he was, and how we're like, okay, this guy really is a player when it comes to being dangerous. And him to take out that base with one shot was fire. Like I was like, okay, I'm like he's a real deal, you know. So
Yeah, and just talking about the final shot here of him transmitting this message that is exactly the reverse of what Moff Gideon said.
I was about to say
It was amazing.
yeah. So I took two things from that, Chris. One, it was like, okay, this is the same words we're getting from Moff Gideon of last season. And also it reminded me of the first Taken with Liam Neeson. Because he's like, you don't know, like you don't understand what you have and blah blah blah. But then I got the Liam Neeson feel of like, I don't have money, blah blah blah. Whenever he's trying to get his daughter back, or he makes a threat to the terrorist or whatever.
Yeah.
And I'm thinking like, oh, is Liam Neeson gonna show up and just be like, is he gonna pull a Taken pretty much and just start wrecking people when he gets on the ship? That's the feeling that I get for next week. I don't know, but I hope when we get to next week, it's gonna be badass when he gets on that ship. I thought the ending scene of that hologram projection or that mission was perfect tone. It made a point. I honestly got the feeling that Moff Gideon was kind of like surprised by it because he didn't expect that. So yeah, I think some shit's gonna go down next week.
Oh yeah. We're gonna get into our predictions real fast. But one thing was the title of the episode. And usually for me, the title of the episode is pretty cut and dry. Like, you know what it's referencing. But the believer. Now, is the believer Din or is the believer Mayfield? We'll start with Ben first on this one.
Oh man, that's a really tough one. I would say the believer on the surface, a lot of people may look at it and think it was Mayfield, but I think it was Din, just because it shows him, learning to trust people more. Like, he trusted Mayfeld, like when Mayfeld was like, hey, didn't see your face, don't worry about it. I think, and then, throughout this entire episode, I'm sure in universe, Din was really surprised Bill Burr or Mayfeld didn't just squeal, as soon as they got into the Imperial base, because all he would have had to do was squeal and be like, hey, all of you Imperial officers, help me out here. Yeah. So literally he could have gotten out of it just like that, but he didn't. So I think it really made Din have faith in people, which the only thing about that is anytime a main character gets faith like that and, builds up hope, there's always the chance for that hope to get crushed. So I think that makes me a little nervous for this coming week, just because, could we get a Boba Fett heel turn in the next one? Like, I don't know. It's just something's egging on me that I feel like there's something going to be heart-wrenching or something really like crushing for Din.
Yeah.
In this coming episode. And, just even leading off like the end of it, Milton, you thought Moff Gideon looked surprised. I honestly feel like he looked like he was more like mad. So like, I think there's a decent chance, like when we get to the next episode, like, something bad could be happening to Grogu, to really be like, hey, as soon as Din shows up, he's like, Moff Gideon could be like, hey, it's too late. Your kid's already getting chopped up or so, or experimented on. So I'm really kind of antsy going to the next one just to see how the whole believer thing plays out for Din, just because of that fact. Because he could have this belief in, like, say, Boba and Fennec, and then it could potentially turn out badly. Just because my only reason I'm concerned about that is if you watch the last episode with Boba in it, when him and Fennec are talking to Din at the end, when Boba's like, I'll stay with you till the child's safe, blah, blah, blah. Fennec, if you look at her, she looks really like a guilty look on her face. And she doesn't say anything, but she has a really like guilty look. And, sure, I could be reading into it too much, but I don't know. I feel like there could be something coming up.
Right.
Mm.
Yeah. To answer your first question, Chris, about who the believer was, at first I thought it was just purely Mayfield, but I say it's three characters. One, I think I'll talk about Cara Dune. I think when she first picked up Mayfield at the beginning of the episode, she's very skeptical about him. She very
Mhm.
much is not trusting of him. You got that vibe. I think towards the end of the episode, and as she saw him, you know, be honorable and take out the base and really prove himself, she said, you know what, he's actually not terrible. I'll let him do his thing and let him go. Then I turned to the Mandalorian of, again, having trust and Mayfield to not reveal his his face, to have his back and that type of thing, and really just take up some honor about hey, respecting I guess people in the general and just doing the right thing. And then I look at Mayfield, like he's a believer in the Mandalorian, like having his back and not killing him. He believed in his fellow soldiers that he was sad about and had PTSD about, but also he had faith. He believed in Kara and letting them go and saying, "Hey, you guys are being honorable." So
Mhm.
I think it's a mix between those three and how their
Interesting.
actions reflected one another.
Yeah.
Um, but overall, though, like I thought the old episode was about just the belief that these people can come together and just
Mhm.
work together, have faith in each other, and just like then, as long as they accomplish the mission and be honorable and have some type of redemption, I think that's what it was stemming from with this particular episode. That's how I feel like those three characters were kind of the believer in their own little way.
Mm. Yeah. No, that is definitely one way to look at it. Everybody has their own thing. I mean, even Chris is saying something about Boba Fett being a believer, seeing didn't pull off this whole thing.
Yeah.
But we're gonna get. I think we talk about this almost every episode, or at least the last few episodes. Is what do we think is gonna happen in the finale? So for either of you, has anything changed with your predictions for the finale after watching this episode? Are you still thinking along the same lines of what you were thinking initially?
Mm, oh, God. Honestly, I don't know what to expect. I mean, I think I talked about, from what I remember, was someone dying. I think that will have to
Mm-hmm.
occur. I think that's a given. I th- I think that the Empire is going to, or Moff Gideon will somehow win. And when I say win, I guess get away with something. I don't know how they'll pull it off, but I think we'll be kind of not surprised that the Mandalorian don't achieve his mission by the end of this episode or next week. I think that the audience will be surprised by something. I think this is that classic number 2 season of a show where the bad guys won season 1 or the good guys won season 1 pretty much, but season 2 we got to do something to balance it back out again. So I could see something happening that's going to surprise us, but also just like touch at our heartstrings a little bit. Um, I don't know. I just think something significant will happen that we won't be predicting.
Yeah, I think basically what I've been thinking the whole time. I mean, there's going to be a showdown, obviously, with Moff Gideon. There's going to
Right.
be all the characters we've seen on screen. Kara, we're going to have, maybe we'll get Grief Karga, probably not, but it's going to be Fennec, Boba Fett, and it's going to be Din. They're going to go there. They're going to horribly mess up and think that they outthought or outthink Gideon, only to be defeated. Unfortunately, one of those people is going to die. I'm calling it right now. One of those crew members is going to die. It's not Grogu, obviously. It's not going to be Din. So there's like three choices basically. Um, and I don't even want to say who I think it is because I don't want to will it into existence. But hey, I don't think there has been enough for Boba Fett to really do to kill him off. Or at least I'm
See, I
hoping.
don't. Yeah, I don't think so either. I think with what you said earlier about merchandising and tying this, I think Disney wants to expand his lore and his character, so I can see him staying. I mean,
Mm,
clearly, I mean, honestly, let's look at the whole list of people. I think if we had to pick, it'd be between Grief and Fennec. Like those are ones that are probably disposable right now. Um, Boba's too valuable. Clearly, the Mandalorian and Grogu are too valuable. And Kara, we know she's going to be spun off into some type of series or something. I think eventually. So I can see him being Grief or maybe Fennec, or let's be real here. Cobb Vance could show up.
Yeah.
and help out, and also he gets wiped out. So we just, again, those are my predictions with those three people.
And I think it's gonna be like we're gonna feel kind of down because somebody might die, but then there's gonna be, because it's Star Wars, right? There's gonna be that sense, that glimmer of hope at the end, and that's when we'll see this Jedi that got called by Grogu show up somewhere. Maybe they're not even on the ship that Gideon is on, but maybe we see like another shot, like an end game, like an end credit scene, like it goes to black, opens up with like a Jedi like turning to the camera.
Right.
And it'll have something to do with like him tracking, like that he's gonna come into the fold. He'll be like looking at the ship from afar or something, and then that's gonna be like the big thing that everybody's gonna be talking about for the next year, because it looks like we're not getting season 3 until Christmas this year. Probably COVID, pushed some things back, but at least we're getting it this year and don't have to wait till 2022. But Ben, did your predictions change at all from last time?
Not really. I can echo both of what you guys have to say. I think Mando and his crew are kind of going in there almost cocky, like, hey, we're just going to go in and take out these fools. Especially, I mean, Mando as a character, he just survived this adventure with stormtrooper gear on. I'm sure he's thinking, you know what? I'm going in there with full Beskar. What can they do to me?
Yeah.
And then, I mean, think about it like in terms of the whole Jedi. Like, sure, Mando's not a Jedi, but like, fear leads to anger, anger leads to hate, hate leads to suffering. Mando's pretty mad right now at Gideon for having Baby Yoda or Grogu. So I really think there's a chance it's going to cause Din to misstep, because I think a lot of people are really thinking, like general audience members are really thinking, basically the way this week's episode ended, Mando's going to go in and just wipe the floor with Gideon and get the kid back. And I don't think that's the case at all. I agree. I think Gideon, also from a character point of view, I think Din's looking at Gideon like, sure, he's this Imperial officer that, led the purge on Mandalore and everything. But it's the whole thing of like, even in real life, is the high ranking officers, are they really good fighters or not? And I think Din's going to think Gideon isn't, and then Gideon's going to whip on him with the Darksaber.
Oh yeah.
I really do.
Oh yeah.
And I think, and to go with your points, Chris, Grogu is going to still be kept by the Empire by the end of the season. And then, our main crew, they're going to get their butts kicked by Gideon. Plus, think about it, we haven't even mentioned it during this stream. We're going to get to see the Dark Troopers in action, presumably. So we're going to get to see, Boba whipping on some Dark Troopers, Fennec Shan, Mando, all that good stuff. But I still, even with all that, they're all going to get whipped on, going to be banged up. And like you were saying, Chris, I really think the way this is going to go is actually, you bring up tracking, and that's a good point. I think there's a really good chance it's going to cut from like maybe Mando and Boba and Fennec Shan all really beat up, maybe flying away in the Slave One, really injured or something, or barely escaping. And then it's going to cut, and the final shot is going to be whoever the Jedi is investigating on Tython, and we might only see the Jedi robes like walking around all the wreckage there from the Battle of the Razor Crest on Tython, and then maybe that's when it cuts. Now, speaking of that Jedi, let me ask both of you the question: who do you think it's going to be?
Well, Scrambled Goose just came up a really bold prediction that hasn't come to me, and it's bad because I'm a fan of this character, and that could be Kyle Katarn, who exists in this era in Legends from Jedi Outcast. They brought in the Dark Troopers from Jedi Outcast, so hell, I would love to see that. But, since Jon Favreau is involved, I'm calling it as Luke Skywalker. Like, Jon Favreau has been righting a lot of the I wouldn't say wrongs that the sequel trilogy has done, but people wanted to see Luke in his prime beating crap out of people with a green lightsaber. I think he's going to give it to us in some degree. So that's what I think.
Yeah. I mean, look, if we get Luke in here, let's get it. I mean, I would actually probably forgive the sequel trilogy if we got Luke for a couple episodes wrecking people. I don't foresee Moff Gideon. I see people in the chat talking about Moff Gideon like could be the one dying. I don't see him dying. I think they need to flesh him out more as a character. Because when he's on screen, he steals the screen. We're all glued to that TV. So I think we need to get more Gideon in season 3. That's why I think he'll survive. And then we'll get to see who he's actually working for. Because I still think he's working for someone that we know of or that we don't know of yet. But yeah, again, I think Luke's going to be the Jedi to show up if there is a Jedi that would show up. Ben.
Yep, I definitely echo both of your guys' statements. I think it's Luke. I think them announcing the Ahsoka show slammed the door shut on Ezra. Just because, what would be the point of the Ahsoka show if Ezra is not the goal? So that slams the door shut on Ezra. So if it's not Luke, then I don't know who it could be. Yeah. But I think it's going to be Luke though.
I think it has to be. I mean, I think because Luke at this point is he's entering his prime as a Jedi. He's still young at this point. He's only late 20s at this point, his character. So Luke would have to be on a constant, search of these artifacts and these young Jedi. Yep. Like, I mean, I know Cal Kestis could be a potential one that could show up, but I don't think the writers and Favreau and Filoni would feel that character would serve a good purpose to be that Jedi to show up, because how does he connect, besides in his own video game at that time, but how does he connect to push the story further? Now, again, they could take Cal Kestis, bring him into the show, and make him a character that we all love, and we'll be like, oh, we'd rock with him in his own movie or series. But I think because these two gentlemen are the architects of the show, I think Luke will be the safe bet to really bring the fandom even more excited about, oh, yeah, Luke's around doing some great things. What has he been doing? Because that's one question that's not been answered in live action or in animation or even in the books very well. It's what has Luke been doing?
They've been hiding it so much.
Yeah, over this 30-year period, except for being a coward and running away to an island. Like, I want to see Luke wrecking people. I'm sorry. I'm not going to apologize for that. Star Wars now needs to start giving us that Luke period between that 30 years. And this would be the great way to introduce him.
There is one more thing, though. One more thing to throw out there. I think it's Luke. I think if it is Luke, even at that, I think we're going to get in season 1, episode 5, though. It's going to be like waist down. You maybe see his lightsaber hanging there, that type of thing. But I definitely think there's a 1% chance of 1%. Like, this is just Hail Mary, 1%, 99% chance it won't happen. It could, what if it, I may have been watching too many Star Wars theory videos, but what if it's Mace Windu? Like, think about
he's gonna Mace again.
Think about the on-screen character moment between him and Boba, though. Like, that could be an actual thing. But
Ben is always you are like you're open about it now. You just come on and say it. You want Mace Windu to show up. You want an old Sam Jackson in the show.
I'll have to die on that hill. I think it would be great. Like, this show's been about like breaking the internet with Baby Yoda, Ahsoka, Boba Fett. What's a way to blow the doors off the internet more than having Samuel L. Jackson with a robotic hand walk out? Like that would be insane. But no, realistically, I think it's about a 95% chance it's Luke.
Right. I mean, look, if it's Mace, I wouldn't be mad about it. And actually, I did see this in the chat from, was it Scrambled Goose? He said about Galen Merrick showing up.
Star Killer.
And his own, first of all, if we got Sam Witwer to get on this show to play Galen Merrick, but clearly you got to retcon that character a little bit. Or actually, no, you probably could take that story from Force Unleashed and just tweak it and adapt it. That'd be fire too, though. I ain't gonna lie. Like, if Galen Merrick showed up, but Filoni Filoni and Sam are tight, so I could see that happening. But that's a stretch.
Oh man, we could predict until tomorrow
right.
the possibilities, but we're gonna wrap it up here, guys. It's been a great conversation, but before we leave, how was the episode to you? Did it live up to the hype for a penultimate issue? Let's score it up out of 10. Final thoughts. We'll start with Milton first.
overall, I thought this episode was really solid, a really good episode. It did its job, like I say it pretty much every week. It did its job to further progress the story and the overall arc of the story. I thought this episode, in particularly, probably one of the better episodes to really delve into the character's psyche, talking about their past issues or traumas or PTSD, all that type of stuff. It was cool to see that because I think that's something that Star Wars hasn't really done a good job. And that's not a negative. What I mean is they didn't really have time to flesh that out. So I think in a show like this, you can take time to flesh that out. And to get it from the Imperial's perspective was really cool. I love the visuals of this show. The music, man, the music really touched me. I think I'm on. Eventually, I might get the soundtrack to season 2
Mhm.
because so far it's been really, really good. It was cool to see the Mandalorian with his helmet off and to see how uncomfortable he was with that. To see just the overall teamwork of how each party played its role, and hopefully next week we get to see it pay off. Again, I know that we'll get into predictions probably more at the end of this or even next week, but I think that if I had to score this out of 10, 8.75. Solid episode.
All right, all right. And Ben, what do you think?
Dang. Well, Milton literally took my score rating. I
Oh,
was thinking 8.75 is a fair score because
yeah.
I can't give it a 9, but I think an 8.75 is fair. Um, I thought it was pretty good as a whole. I really liked the evolution of all the characters, Kara,
Mhm.
Mayfeld, and Mando for the different points I mentioned throughout this. My favorite part of the episode, as I said earlier, was I loved Mayfeld basically being the first character to call Mando out on his crap, like, "Hey, dude, what are you doing here?" So I thought
Yeah.
that was great. My only nitpicks on the episode, or not even nitpicks, my critiques of the episode, I just didn't like that the pirates weren't armed with blasters. I thought that was just a little plot holy, plot armor for Mando. And then I really thought the computer terminal didn't really make sense. But overall, as a whole, for a penultimate episode, it was really good. It served its purpose, and again, shout out to Favreau, Filoni, Rick Fuma, the director of
Famiyawa?
the episode.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Shout out to all them. They did such a good job for this one, still sticking to the main format of the show of basically, okay, we need to find this character. Okay, that's Mayfeld. We need them to help us get whatever it is we're looking for, the information on where Gideon was. But, the way to do it is you have to basically give that character Mayfeld an incentive, even though Mayfeld didn't know he was going to be let free. That was kind of his incentive for helping Mando out. So I thought it was really good as a whole, and like I said, I give it an 8.75.
All right, we got two 8.75s. I'm going to go a little bit lower than that for this episode. Before I give you my score, I'll just give you guys my quick thoughts. So, as a penultimate I know I review comics all the time on this channel, and sometimes I call them episodes when I'm reviewing those. So, I'm going to reverse that and say episode. This was I compare this penultimate episode to last year's or last season's, and it didn't live quite up to the epicness of that. I mean, just remember, like, that episode 7 was unbelievable. We get the reveal of Moff Gideon. He is threatening the heck out of everybody. Like, they are about to be killed. Like, that to me is what you call a penultimate episode. I keep doing that. But this, I mean, whether you like it or not, it's your mission is going from point A to point B. Yeah, they had to get the information out, but the journey to do that was surprising. They could have made it very one note, but they definitely elaborated a lot more on Mandalorian. You guys definitely helped me like the episode more with your discussions about the inner psyche, especially Milton mentioning all that with the PTSD. Like, I did not even think about that angle. So that definitely added a lot more layers. We see that Mando, his barrier, his exterior barrier is breaking down. He's getting more comfortable with maybe doing some things he would have never thought about doing before. So you're seeing his character come a long way. You're seeing a side character of Bill Burr's character coming a long way. And yeah, I mean, you just see great action. Like I said, the cinematic quality of this episode, the whole dam scene, the whole scene with the Juggernaut tank going through the jungle, looking like it's Rogue One. I love Rogue One, so I got to give it some extra credibility points on that. So with that being said, I'm going to go with an 8 out of 10 on this episode. So that is going to wrap it up for this episode review of The Mandalorian. As I mentioned a couple times throughout this episode, we just put out a real quick video live stream. It's about 2 hours, so definitely try to listen to it in the background if you can. Maybe it's just us breaking down like the 9 new Star Wars projects or whatever that they announced on the Disney Investors Day. So very exciting day that was in Star Wars history for sure. So I got that. I have a lot of cool reviews coming out very soon, so look forward to those come out this week that you guys are gonna definitely want to check out. But with that being said, make sure you join us next week. We might start a little bit earlier. We'll see. I'll let you guys know if that's the case. Not too much earlier, maybe 7:30, because we'll probably have a lot more to say with the season finale, episode 8 of The Mandalorian season 2. It's going to be awesome, hopefully. So with that being said, for me, for Ben, you can follow them over on Twitter. You can follow Ben at Real Ben Maynard and Milton at Milton Weber 7, and of course me at Star Raptor here. Make sure you go ahead and subscribe to the channel so you know when we do go live next week, which might be a little bit earlier. So that's gonna do it for us here. Thanks for watching, and may the force be with you always. This is the way.